Taking off, the widgeon bounced from wave to wave for nearly a mile before one final ricochet sent it lumbering into the air. Nicolette Scott, hanging on for dear life, clutched the wobbling armrest of her seat and muttered, "Elliot, I'm going to get you for this." Although her famous father was seated right behind her in the cramped cabin, she was sure that he hadn't heard. The roar of the seaplane's twin engines was too loud. The call from her father had come less than 24 hours ago. "Nick, this is your lucky day," Elliot had said, without preamble. "You sound like you're in a tunnel." "I'm on a radio phone." "Don't you mean cell phone?" she said. "Where do you think I am?" She hated it when he teased her. Her academic degrees and all her years of hard work slipped away, and she was a small child again, waiting for him to come home from some impossibly faraway place. In exasperation, she said, "I'll bite, Elliot. Where are you?" "Do you remember me telling you about Kurt Buettner?" Nick started to say no, then caught herself. Elliot and Buettner had gone to school together. Snapshots of the two of them filled several pages of Elliot's scrapbook. "Isn't he the one you call Crazy Kurt?" "That's him, only he isn't as crazy as I used to think." That wasn't the way Nick remembered the stories. One in particular had fascinated her. Buettner had faked the discovery of a Zuni artifact during an archaeological field trip, earning himself a top grade. But when his sense of humor got the better of him, and he'd finally owned up to what he'd done, the instructor was too embarrassed to admit he'd been bamboozled and refused to change the grade. Shortly after that, Buettner inherited money and gave up grad school altogether to sail around the world. "Your stories made him sound crazy," Nick reminded her father. He's come up with a theory about the Anasazi." "I'm listening." "First, you ought to know that we're 3,000 miles east of Hawaii at the moment, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, floating off an island called Balesin, to be precise." "Elliot, I seem to remember you telling me not to call you for the next 2 weeks, that you were on deadline and didn't want to be disturbed because your manuscript is overdue. I think you also mentioned something about having spent the publisher's advance already." "If you were awake in my classes, daughter, you'll remember that my Anasazi started dying out during the Great Drought at the end of the 13th century. That's the accepted wisdom, anyway. Has something changed? What if they didn't die out? What if they migrated?" "To where?" "That's where Kurt comes in. He's been sailing the Pacific and following the trade winds for years, sort of a Thor Heyerdahl with a yacht instead of a raft. Anyway, he thinks it's possible that the Anasazi abandoned the southwestern desert and worked their way to the west coast, where they built rafts and sailed away." Nick sighed. "Have you and Kurt been drinking?" "Kurt's gone legitimate. He went back to school and took his doctorate at the University of Hawaii. He even teaches classes there on cultures of the Pacific. That's how he happened to send me photos of a gourd pot he found in the Caroline Islands. It has an elaborately painted design that's quite reminiscent of late Anasazi artwork." "Are you telling me you flew all that way to look at a pot?" "Nick, it could have been important to my research." "Was it?" "Okay, so it's not Anasazi, despite the similarity in design," Elliot said. "But Kurt paid my airfare, and I needed a vacation from that damned manuscript of mine." "Where exactly is this island?" "West of Borneo, north of New Guinea, south of Japan. You won't find it on your standard atlas at the moment, but we can change that, Nick. Together we can make the place famous."